Hello, my friends. Today, the US is trying to explain why it imposed tariffs on a huge number of countries, but somehow didn't touch Russia or Belarus. Why are they being treated better than others, and why is the US handling Russia so delicately? The White House actually responded to this question.
There's obviously an ongoing negotiation with Russia and Ukraine, and I think the president made the decision not to conflate the two issues. It doesn't mean that Russia, the fullest of time, is going to be treated wildly different than every other country.
But Russia is one of the only countries, one of the few countries that is not subject to these new tariffs, aren't they?
They're in the middle of a negotiation, George, aren't they?
Well, I'm asking a different question. Why? And I just want to know
No,
why.
would you literally advise that you go in and put a whole bunch of new things on the table in the middle of a negotiation that affects so many American and Ukrainian and Russian lives?
Negotiators do that. Negotiators do that all the time.
No, no. That's not appropriate to throw a new thing into these negotiations right in the middle of it. It's just not.
So you are conceding that Russia is not paying any new tariffs, unlike many of our allies, including Europe, Canada, Mexico.
Russia is in the midst of negotiations over peace that affects really thousands and thousands of lives of people, and that's what President Trump's focused on right now.
As we can see, instead of putting maximum pressure on Russia from all sides, they are even afraid to impose tariffs. And they're using the negotiations as an excuse, even though tariffs and Ukraine talks are two completely different things. With other countries, they imposed tariffs silently without asking anyone. But with Russia, they are scared, so they hide behind the excuse of ongoing talks. That's how Trump is showing weakness in front of Russia. And a Democratic senator said that America can no longer be called a true democracy. I think when we talk about America being a democracy, we need to rephrase that it's a pseudo-democracy. And it's not just about Elon Musk and the Republicans, it's also about the billionaires in the Democratic Party. As we can see, America is no longer what it used to be. That's why we are seeing all this chaos both in the US and around the world caused by America's actions. Also, today it's important to know that this week a Ukrainian delegation is heading to the US to sign an agreement regarding natural resources. But if the delegation signs the deal in the form that the US demands, it could mean the end of Ukraine as a functioning country. Friends, it's clear they want only themselves to be allowed to extract Ukraine's natural resources. They also want all the profits from those resources already been mined today to go straight to the United States. Essentially, Ukraine would be left with nothing to survive on. The country would sink into darkness because its development would be shut down completely. And if there is any kind of development, the money would flow into American funds, not Ukrainian ones. Friends, be sure to leave your thoughts on this in the comments. Today, Ukraine stands on the edge of disaster, and whether our politicians will be able to change anything remains a big question because it's clear Trump isn't planning to stop. But today, among a flood of bad news, there is one piece of good news. For the first time in 21 months, the price of Russian oil has dropped to $50 per barrel. And Peskov admitted that this is extremely painful for them.
Of course, that's a figure that's very important to us, very important for keeping our budget afloat. And of course, we are closely monitoring the current situation, which is extremely unstable, tense, and emotionally charged. This is due to the US decision to impose tariffs on most countries around the world. And of course, if we look at the global economy right now, it's definitely very tense, full of negative expectations. That's the talk among experts, market players, and so on. Our financial authorities are watching this situation very closely. And of course, we'll do whatever it takes to minimize the consequences of this international economic storm for our economy.
But as we can see, despite financial difficulties, Russia still has no intentions of stopping the war. So let's briefly go over the situation along the front line. We'll start with the Kursk direction. Here, Russian forces have ramped up their activity and are trying to fully push Ukrainian forces out of Russian territory. It's clear they are in a hurry. Yesterday, there were reports that they've advanced in the village of Huyevo. Unfortunately, there is video evidence to support this, even though the Ukrainian side has yet to officially confirm this. Still, it looks like Russian troops are making slow progress here, although Ukrainian forces continue to inflict heavy losses on them. Meanwhile, in the Belgorod direction, there are currently no new offensive actions by the Ukrainian forces. The Russians claim they've cleared the village of Ukrainian units. At the same time, shelling of the Sumy region continues, but so far there are no major developments or significant changes in the area. In the Kharkiv direction, the Russians continue to shell the border area. However, they are not launching new assaults at the moment. In Vovchansk, fighting has resumed, and the Russians are once again trying to regain control, at least up to the natural water barrier. But even that isn't working for them, as the Ukrainian forces are repelling every attack. It seems this is why Russian forces are now deploying more capable brigades to the area, which means the situation here could soon deteriorate. Now let's move straight to the Pokrovsk direction. The Russians are assaulting Novoalexandrivka, Udachne, Kotline, Lysivka, and Yelizavetivka, and they're trying to break through across the fields near the highway. There is also a heavy amount of shelling going on in this area. Late last night, there were reports that the Russians shelled Dobropilla using MLRS and glide bombs. A video has also showing Russian forces shelling Pokrovsk, specifically in the Shakhtarsky neighborhood. A drone filmed the aftermath of the strike, which suggests the Russians knew exactly what they were targeting and are monitoring everything from above. Overall, Russian activity remains extremely high, but so far they haven't managed to advance, and there have been no significant changes over the past 24 hours. In the Kurakhove direction, the Russians are assaulting Kotlярivka and Preobrazhenka, trying to break through near Troitske, and also attacking Konstantinopel and Rozliv. The situation here is very difficult. Russian forces are actively using FPV drones to strike the village of Bogatyr, and the gray zone is expanding even in this direction. However, so far the Russians haven't managed to break through and secure any positions. The Ukrainian forces continue to repel all attacks, and the number of Russian losses is growing by the day. Meanwhile, in the area around Velikonovosilka, the Russians are storming the village of Vesela and trying to push through near Burlatske. Russians are even claiming that they are assaulting the village of Shevchenko. Fighting is also ongoing near Vilna Pole. As of now, the Ukrainian side hasn't confirmed any Russian breakthroughs into Shevchenko. However, the Russians claim they've reached the lithium deposit on the eastern outskirts of the village. We are still waiting for official confirmation. In the Zaporizhia direction, the Russians are assaulting Mali Sherbaki, and Kamiensk. Shelling continues, but over the past 24 hours, there have been no new changes, and the Russians have been unable to make any breakthroughs. In the Kherson direction, Russian forces continue attacking the islands, but they haven't achieved any new successes and have failed to advance closer to Kherson. Shelling also continues, but for now, the situation remains unchanged. Now let's move on to the Toretsk direction. Here, the Russians are assaulting Leonidivka and attempting to break through around Zabalka and Dachne. To the south, they continue attacks on Sukhabalka and Kalinove. So far, there have been no changes in the past 24 hours, but the situation remains difficult and Russian activity is not decreasing. FPV drones are being actively used along with artillery strikes. In the Chasiv Yar direction, the Russians are pushing toward Deliivka and attempting to strike from the rear. However, there have been no changes in the past 24 hours and activity remains low for now, so we're waiting to see how the situation develops. In the Siversk direction, the Russians are assaulting Bilohorivka, but overall activity remains minimal and there have been no changes along the front line in the past 24 hours. However, in the Liman direction, the situation is different with a high number of continuous attacks. They are trying to assault Zarichne, Yampolivka, Kolodezi, and Lipove while attempting to break through to the villages of Ritkodub and Novomykhailivka. Despite Russia's Minister of Defense claiming to have captured the village of Katerinivka, the Ukrainian side hasn't confirmed this information and the front line remains unchanged. In the Borova direction, the Russians are currently accumulating reserves and haven't launched any new assaults as all previous attacks failed and the Ukrainian forces inflicted significant damage. To the south, attacks on Novoyegorivka and Novosergiyevka continue, but there have been no changes in the front line in the past 24 hours and the situation remains stable. In the Kupiansk direction, there is calm today with no new assaults from the Russians and the front line remains unchanged. However, near Dvorichna, the Russians continue to storm Kamenka and artillery shelling is ongoing. It appears the Russians are focused and continue to concentrate reserves to press forward with attacks in this area. We're still waiting to see how this assault will end. It's already known that the Russians are breaking through to the village and trying to establish a foothold there. Meanwhile, because Russian war correspondents are reporting a lot of truth about the horrible situation on the front lines, Roskomnadzor has started targeting Telegram channels and actively blocking them. Roskomnadzor stated that Telegram had removed over 373 publications or channels at their request. The main body of Russian censorship demanded, among other things, the removal of materials from the VCHKOGPU and the channel itself due to fake news and extremism. Today, this channel was deleted. Telegram claimed they were not involved in this. The administration of VCHKOGPU called it a lie. Additionally, Roskomnadzor warned of the potential blocking of foreign hosting providers, which could result in dozens of foreign services no longer functioning in Russia. The last time they conducted a blocking test, it took down the entire Russian internet. In the near future, Russia seems to be closing itself off from the rest of the world and creating a domestic internet to ensure that Russians are fully brainwashed by Russian news. Meanwhile, Trump is threatening China for responding by imposing its own tariffs. Trump is threatening China with an additional 50% tariffs. Currently, China is subjected to a 54% tariff, but if Trump imposes new tariffs, Chinese goods will be taxed at 104% starting April 9. After the US introduced its tariffs, China retaliated with its own tariffs. But now Trump says he will impose even higher tariffs than initially planned. He also intends to end negotiations and meetings that China had requested. However, China has already stated that it will not make concessions to the US. It seems that soon World War III could start with the use of nuclear weapons, and it appears that the one who strikes first will survive. Be sure to share your thoughts in the comments. Trump also commented on what is happening with the tariffs.
I will say this, virtually every country wants to negotiate. If I didn't do what I did over the last couple of weeks, you wouldn't have anybody wants to negotiate. We would have gone to these countries, you want to talk? And they were, well, we don't want to talk. Now they're coming to us. They're offering things like even Bibi, and this is unrelated because it's a different kind of a relationship. But he started off our conversation today that he's cutting all of the tariffs. He's cutting everything. He's going to get down to a free base. He's going to do things that, in all fairness, other countries, if they said that, would have never even thought about doing it. Now they're offering things to us that we would have never even thought of asking them for.
In general, we'll see how it all ends, and make sure to share your thoughts in the comments. And that's all from me, so please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye.